Hello everyone, I am back today for tutorial on cost management in Azure. Welcome to my channel TechQuest Learning Point. How are you guys? In my previous tutorial in this series of Azure Fundamentals, I already discussed on the topic of Azure architectural components. Today I am going to start a discussion on the topic cost management in Azure. That means this tutorial describes the methods of estimate, track and manage costs in Azure. You can get the clear concepts about the cost management in Azure, including the factors that can affect cost in Azure, the comparison of pricing calculator and total cost of ownership TCO calculator, Azure Cost Management Tool and purpose of the tax. I can assure you all that this tutorial will make sense to you about Azure Fundamentals. The ultimate target of this tutorial is to make you prepare for the exam AZ900 Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. If anyone want to be the Microsoft certified Azure Fundamentals, this tutorial will be the right choice for them to make clear the exam AZ900 Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. This tutorial is derived from the Microsoft Learning Paths for Azure Fundamentals exam. So anyone can rely on this tutorial to take the preparation for the exam AZ900 Azure Fundamentals. Before starting the discussion, let's look into the contents of this tutorial. What will be discussed in this tutorial? I am going to discuss on how to manage the cost in Azure Cloud Computing Platform. You will learn about factors that impact cost in Azure and tools to help you both predict potential cost and monitor and control cost. This discussion will mainly make you clear on how the OpEx cost can be impacted by factors including resource type, consumption, maintenance, geography, subscription type, and Azure Market Place. You will also learn about the cost management in detail, including cost analysis, cost alert, budget alert, credit, and department spending cost alert. The exam AZ900 Microsoft Azure Fundamental includes 3 knowledge domain areas such as number 1, describe cloud concepts, number 2, describe Azure architecture and services, number 3, describe Azure management and governance. This tutorial is the 7th episode of the Azure Fundamental series and it is part of 3 knowledge domain. In my previous tutorial, I have discussed about the CapEx and OpEx of Azure. Here, I will discuss about the factors that can impact on the Azure operating cost OpEx. In Azure, the cost of building out and maintaining infrastructure and facilities of cloud computing, which is called the capital expense CapEx, is shifted to an operational expense OpEx of renting infrastructure as you need it. To put a finer way, cloud computing platform setup cost, cloud computing maintaining cost, and facilities of cloud computing cost are considered as CapEx. This cost is shifted to the consumer's shoulder as the renting expense of the cloud computing platform. The OpEx cost can be impacted by many factors including resource type, consumption, maintenance, geography, subscription type, and Azure Market Place. Resource type. In case of renting the cloud computing platform, the resource cost is very important factor that has impact on the total renting cost of cloud platform. The cloud's resource cost depends on the type of resources, the settings for the resource, and the Azure region. As per the provision of resource, the resource cost is charged. To put it another way, a number of factors influence the cost of Azure resources. The type of resources, the settings for the resource, and the Azure region will all have an impact on how much a resource costs. When you provision an Azure resource, Azure creates metered instances for that resource. The meters track the resources uses and generate a usage record that is used to calculate your bill. With a storage account, we specify a type such as a blob, a performance tier, an access tier, redundancy settings, and a region. Creating the same storage account in different regions may show different costs, and changing any of the settings may also impact the price. With a virtual machine VM, you may have to consider licensing for the operating system or other software, the processor and number of cores for the VM, the attached storage, and the network interface. Just like with storage, provisioning the same virtual machine in different regions may result in different costs. Consumption. Pay as you go has been a consistent theme throughout, and that's the cloud payment model where you pay for the resources that you use during a billing cycle. If you use more compute this cycle, you pay more. If you use less in the current cycle, you pay less. It's a straightforward pricing mechanism that allows for maximum flexibility. In simply, the consumer will pay as per the uses of the cloud computing resources. In a billing cycle, if the consumer does not use any resources, they will not pay. If you will use more compute, you will pay more. This straightforward pricing mechanism is called the pay-as-you-go pricing model. However, Azure also offers the ability to commit to using a set amount of cloud resources in advance and receiving discounts on those reserved resources. Many services, including databases, compute, and storage, all provide the option to commit to a level of use and receive a discount, in some cases up to 72%. When you reserve capacity, you are committing to using and paying for a certain amount of Azure resources during a given period, typically 1 or 3 years. With the backup of pay as you go, if you see a sudden surge in demand that lives with what you have pre-reserved, you just pay for the additional resources in excess of your reservation. This model allows you to recognize significant savings on reliable, consistent workloads while also having the flexibility to rapidly increase your cloud footprint as the need arises. Maintenance. The flexibility of the cloud makes it possible to rapidly adjust resources based on demand. Using resource groups can help keep all of your resources organized. In order to control costs, it is important to maintain your cloud environment. For example, every time you provision a VM, additional resources such as storage and networking are also provisioned. If you deprovision the VM, those additional resources may not deprovision at the same time, either intentionally or unintentionally. By keeping an eye on your resources and making sure you are not keeping around resources that are no longer needed, you can help control cloud costs. In simply, we can say cloud cost can vary depending on the cloud maintenance work. How it is possible? Let's say you have provisioned a virtual machine. We know that after provisioning a VM, the additional resources such as storage and networking are also provisioned. After end of requirement, when you deprovision the VM, the storage and networking may not deprovision. Geography. When you provision most resources in Azure, you need to define a region where the resource deploys. Azure infrastructure is distributed globally, which enables you to deploy your services centrally or closest to your customers or something in between. With this global deployment comes global pricing differences. The cost of power, labor, taxes, and fees vary depending on the location. Due to these variations, Azure resources can differ in cost to deploy depending on the region. Network traffic is also impacted based on geography. For example, it is less expensive to move information within Europe than to move information from Europe to Asia or South America. Subscription type. Some Azure subscription types also include uses, allowances, and which affects cost. For example, an Azure free trial subscription provides access to a number of Azure products that are free for 12 months. It also includes credit to spend within your first 30 days of sign up. You will get access to more than 25 products that are always free based on resource and region availability. Azure Market Place. Azure Marketplace lets you purchase Azure-based solutions and services from third-party vendors. This could be a server with software pre-installed and configured, or managed network firewall appliances or connectors to third-party backup services. When you purchase products through Azure Marketplace, you may pay for not only the Azure services that you are using, but also the services or expertise of the third-party vendor. Billing structures are set by vendor. All solutions available in Azure Marketplace are certified and outlined with Azure policies and standards. The certification policies may vary based on the service or solution type and Azure service involved. Commercial Marketplace certification policies has additional information on Azure Marketplace certification. The pricing calculator and the total cost of ownership (TCO) calculator are two calculators that help you understand potential Azure expenses. Both calculators are accessible from the internet, and both calculators allow you to build out a configuration. However, the two calculators have very different purposes. That means, in order to understand the Azure potential cost, we can use two calculators. One is the pricing calculator and another is the total cost of ownership (TCO) calculator. Pricing calculator. The pricing calculator is designed to give you an estimate to cost for provisioning resources in Azure. You can get an estimate for individual resources, build out a solution, or use an example scenario to see an estimate of the Azure spend. The pricing calculator's focus is on the cost of provisioned resources in Azure. The pricing calculator is for information purposes only. The prices are only an estimate. Nothing is provisioned when you add resources to the pricing calculator, and you won't be charged for any service you select. With the pricing calculator, you can estimate the cost of any provisioned resources, including compute, storage, and associated network cost. You can even account for different storage options like storage type, access tier, and redundancy. TCO calculator. The TCO calculator is designed to help you compare the cost for running an on-premises infrastructure compared to an Azure cloud infrastructure. With the TCO calculator, you enter your current infrastructure configuration, including servers, databases, storage, and outbound network traffic. The TCO calculator then compares the anticipated cost for your current environment with an Azure environment supporting the same infrastructure requirements. With the TCO calculator, you enter your configuration and add in assumptions like power and IT labor cost, and are presented with the estimation of the cost difference to run the same environment in your current data center or in Azure. Azure Cost Management Tool. Microsoft Azure is a global cloud provider, meaning you can provision resources anywhere in the world. You can provision resources rapidly to meet a sudden demand or to test out a new feature or an accident. If you accidentally provision new resources, you may not be aware of them until it's time for your invoice. Cost management is an Azure service that helps you avoid the situation. Cost management provides the ability to quickly check Azure resource cost, create alerts based on resource spent, and create budgets that can be used to automate management of resources. Cost analysis is a subset of cost management that provides a quick visual for your Azure cost. Using cost analysis, you can quickly view the total cost in a variety of different ways, including by billing cycle, region, resource, and so on. You use cost analysis to explore and analyze your organizational cost. You can view aggregated cost by organization to understand where costs are accrued and to identify spending trends, and you can see accumulated cost over time to estimate monthly, quarterly, or even yearly cost trends against budget. Cost alert. Cost alerts provide a single location to quickly check on all of the different alert types that may show up in the cost management service. The three types of alerts that may show up are budget alerts, credit alerts, department spending quota alerts. Budget alerts. Budget alerts notify you when spending based on uses or cost reaches or exceeds the amount defined in the alert condition of the budget. Cost management budgets are created using the Azure portal or the Azure Consumption API. In the Azure portal, budgets are defined by cost. Budgets are defined by the cost or by consumption uses when using the Azure Consumption API. Budget alerts support both cost-based and usage-based budget. Budget alerts are generated automatically whenever the budget alert conditions are met. You can view all cost alerts in the Azure portal. Whenever an alert is generated, it appears in cost alerts. An alert email is also sent to the people in the alert receipts list of the budget. Credit alerts. Credit alerts notify you when Azure credit monetary commitments are consumed. Monetary commitments are for organizations with enterprise agreements. Credit alerts are generated automatically at 90% and at 100% of your Azure credit balance. Whenever an alert is generated, it is reflected in cost alerts and in the email sent to the account owners. Department spending quota alerts. Department spending quota alerts notify you when department spending reaches a fixed threshold of the quota. Spending quotas are configured in a EA portal. Whenever a threshold is met, it generates an email to department owners. and appears in cost alerts. For example, 50% or 75% of the quota. Budgets. A budget is where set a spending limit for Azure. You can set budgets based on a subscription, resource group, service type, or other criteria. When you set a budget, you will also set a budget alert. When the budget hits the budget alert level, it will trigger a budget alert that shows up in the cost alerts area. If configured, budget alerts will also send an email notification that a budget alert threshold has been triggered. A more advanced use of budgets enables budget conditions to trigger automation that suspends or otherwise modifies resources once the trigger condition has occurred. Purpose of tags. In order to manage the resources, we can use resource groups. Resource tags are another way to organize resources. Tags provide extra information or metadata about your resources. This metadata is useful for resource management tags. Resource management tags enable you to locate and act on resources that are associated with specific workloads, environments, business units, and owners. Cost management and optimization tags. It is enable you to group resources so that you can report on cost, allocate internal cost centers, track budgets, and forecast estimate cost. Operation management tags. It enables you to group resources according to how critical their availability is to your business. This grouping helps you formulate service level agreement (SLAs), and SLA is an uptime or performance guarantee between you and your users. Security tags. It enables you to classify data by its security level, such as public or confidential. Governance and regulatory compliance tags. It enables you to identify resources that align with governance or regulatory compliance requirements, such as ISO 27001. Tags can also be part of your standards enforcement of efforts. For example, you might require that all resources be tagged with an owner or department name. Workload optimization and automation tags. It can help you visualize all of the resources that participate in complex deployments. For example, you might tag a resource with its associated workload or application name and use software such as Azure DevOps to perform automated tasks on those resources. A resource tag consists of a name and a value. You can assign one or more tags to each Azure resource. App name. Value. The name of the application that resource is part of. Cost center. Value. The internal cost center code. Owner. The name of the business owner who's responsible for the resource. Environment. An environment name such as prod, dev, or test. Impact. How important the resource is to business operations, such as mission critical, high impact, or low impact. Review. Now we are at the end of the tutorial. Before ending the tutorial, I want to review what I learned from this tutorial in terms of the following topics. Cost impacting factors. The factors including resource type, consumption, maintenance, geography, subscription type, and Azure Market Place can impact on the cost of Azure computing platform. Resource type. The cloud resource cost depends on the type of resources the settings for the resource and the Azure region. As per the provision of resource, the resource cost is charged. Consumption. The consumer will pay as per the uses of cloud computing resources in a billing cycle. If the consumer does not use any resources, they will not pay. If you will use more compute, you will pay more. This straightforward pricing mechanism is called the pay-as-you-go pricing model. Maintenance. The cloud cost can vary depending on the cloud maintenance work. Sometimes the cloud maintenance work can reduce the cost. Geography. The global deployment of resources comes global pricing differences. The cost of power, labor, taxes and fees vary depending on the location. Due to these variations, Azure resources can differ in cost to deploy depending on the region. Subscription type. Some Azure subscription types include usage allowances which affect cost, such as an Azure free trial subscription provides access to a number of Azure products that are free for 12 months. Azure Market Place. When you purchase products through Azure Market Place, you may pay for not only the Azure services that you are using, but also the services or expertise of the third-party vendors. Billing structures are set by the vendor. Pricing calculator. The pricing calculator is designed to give you an estimated cost for provisioning resources in Azure. Total cost of ownership TCO calculator. The TCO calculator is designed to help you compare the cost for running an on-premises infrastructure compared to an Azure cloud infrastructure. Budget alert. Budget alerts notify you when spending based on uses or cost reaches or exceeds the amount defined in the alert condition of the budget. Credit alert. Credit alerts notify you when your Azure credit monetary commitments are consumed. Monetary commitments are for organizations with enterprise agreements. EA. Department spending quota alert. Department spending quota alerts notify you when department spending reaches a fixed threshold of quota. Spending quotas are configured in the EA portal. Purpose of tax. In order to manage the resources, we can use resource groups. Resource tags are another way to organize resources. Tags provide extra information or metadata about your resources. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you all have been able to take the idea about the cost management in Azure. If you think this tutorial is helpful for learning the Azure cloud computing, please click on the like button and request you all to share it more and more to the persons who are searching the tutorial like this. If you have any questions on this tutorial, opinions and queries about this channel, please type this in the comment box. You also mail to me. In the description box, email ID is given for you. Kindly subscribe this channel and click on the bell button so that you can get notification when new tutorial is published.